I would like to welcome the President, Javier Cremades, President of the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation, and just entering is the President of Ecuador, Guillermo Lasso. Thank you, President, for being with us. He's here. In the name of all of us, I would like to say a hearty welcome to Anthony Kennedy, Judge of the U.S. Supreme Court. To Judge Ricardo Pérez Manrique, President of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. Our Awardees, Judge Kari, Kuusiniemi, Trustee of the World Law Foundation and President of the Supreme Administrative Court of Finland. Diego García-Sayán, Trustee of the World Law Foundation and former United Nations Special Rapporteur on the independence of judges and lawyers. And to all of you, authorities, ladies, gentlemen, lawyers, jurists, friends, I hope and I'm sure we're going to have two memorable days. And I welcome you all to the World Law Congress in New York in 2023. I am Viviane Reding, the Vice President of the World Law Foundation. That is the executive branch of the World Jurist Association, and I will be your host during this opening and awarding ceremony. And with no further ado, because you had not come to listen to me, but to our guest, I will ask them to make a video introducing the history of the World Jurist Association, and right after that, I will give the floor to Javier Cremades, President of our organizations. So please bring the video.
Peace through law. During the Cold War years, faced with the threat of a nuclear holocaust, a few good men set in motion a singular initiative in favor of peace. It was July 1957 when, on the occasion of a gala hosted in London in honor of the American Bar Association, its president, Charles Rhine, the Chief Justice of the United States, Earl Warren, and Sir Winston Churchill agreed to create a program to promote world peace through law, the rule of law against the use of force. It's at that moment they decided to launch what would later be called the World Jurist Association. Years later, in 1963, Charles Rhine and Earl Warren, in their tireless struggle for human rights, inaugurated in Greece the first World Congress of Law. Numerous presidents of Supreme and Constitutional Courts from different countries throughout the world, general attorneys, egregious lawyers, and eminent professors, a group of more than 3,000 jurists centered around a single purpose, defined by President Kennedy in his message to the Assembly. It gives me great pleasure to send greetings to the First World Conference on World Peace through the Rule of Law. This conference represents 5 years of effort and brings together lawyers and judges from overseas from 100 countries in the attempt to develop and strengthen the legal machinery that must form the basis for peaceful relations among all nations. 2 years later, Lyndon B. Johnson inaugurated the Second World Congress in Washington, whose organizing committee was chaired by Presidents Truman and Eisenhower. 25 more assemblies of this kind, organized by the World Jurist Association, have taken place since then in various countries worldwide. Thousands of men and women united in this formidable association to promote peace through law throughout the world. Three world statesmen were also honored years ago with the World Peace and Liberty Award. Sir Winston Churchill, René Cassin, father of the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and Nelson Mandela. In Madrid, within the framework of the 26th World Law Congress, the largest association of jurists in the world, King Felipe VI of Spain is awarded the World Peace and Liberty Award for his defense of democratic and constitutional values that has presided over the 40 years of greater freedom and prosperity throughout the history of his country.
In February 2020, the World Jurist Association and the World Law Foundation, chaired by Javier Cremades, present the World Peace and Liberty Award to US Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, recognizing her laudable advocacy of gender equality and civil rights throughout her professional life, as well as having founded the Women's Rights section within the American Civil Liberties Union. On the passing of the US Supreme Court Associate Justice, the World Jurist Association, along with Professor Jane Ginsburg, decided to confer the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Medals of Honor to female jurists who have promoted the rule of law and gender equality throughout their careers.
I have the great honor this morning of presenting a resolution that was adopted by the World Jurist Association Board of Directors. For the first time, this award, that many consider the Nobel Prize of Law, is not given to a person, but to a people. In honor of Colombian democracy and the great achievements made by the people of Colombia and by the governments they have elected, the World Jurist Association awards to them the World Peace and Liberty Award as its 2021 World Law Congress. Congratulations, people of Colombia.
For 60 years now, the WJA has worked to strengthen the rule of law around the globe so we can build a peaceful, more inclusive set of societies where the rights of all are respected.
Freedom, equality, rule of law. But that's what you're trying to do. And that's what you've been trying to do in this organization for quite a few years.
5 outstanding women will be receiving the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Medals of Honor.
It's a function of the World Jurist Association to recognize the activities of members of the judiciary in favor of fundamental rights around the world.
Thank you, Ambassador Young, for your leadership and your tireless dedication in favor of human rights, dignity, justice, and equality. Andrew Young is a powerful voice of peace.
I want to thank you for your faith in justice and your willingness to work for peace.
The next World Law Congress, to take place in New York at the UN headquarters and by the New York City Bar Association.
Good morning. Welcome to this jam-packed World Law Congress in New York 2023. We have been working over the last 2 years to put together this opportunity to explore in depth the challenges that the rule of law faces in today's world. Colleagues and friends from Mexico, Fiji, Indonesia, Spain, China, Ecuador, Romania, Germany, South Africa, and Malaysia have been working together on what may be the most important conversation to date on the rule of law. All of our proceedings will be taped and shared on our website for the use of public everywhere, anytime. Many may think that the rule of law is declining in importance worldwide as autocracies attempt to penetrate and influence democracies to make them weaker. Indeed, the rule of law is threatened by the usual adverse forces, ideologies, autocrats, parties, different groups that work to avoid the limitation of power that the law represents on behalf of human dignity, peace, and freedom. If we engage in these conversations today in the New York City Bar Association building or tomorrow at the United Nations building, we will probably better prepare to be part of a wonderful worldwide army that fights with the sword of law for the integrity of human dignity everywhere. The rule of law is at the heart of constitutionalism. Public power can be legitimately exercised only if it's based on compliance with the law. The Constitution of a country and its fundamental values, human dignity, freedom, and equality, are the ultimate sources of orientation for the rule of law. Domestic rule of law is fulfilled within its international expression, the duty to respect international law, and for EU member states, it's supranational law, the European law. For the World Jurist Association, the realization of the rule of law has been its central concern since its founding more than 60 years ago. This biennial World Law Congress, which brings together leading figures from politics, the judiciary, and academia, focuses on the universal importance of the rule of law, which experts from numerous countries will explain and discuss in view of the present problems in their various regions. At the 2021 World Law Congress in Barranquilla, Colombia, one central topic was the tension between efforts in combating pandemics and the rule of law. In the current World Law Congress, the conversation will center on climate governance, misinformation, and sustainability of democracies, and reflect on the rule of law of the real and terrible war in Ukraine. Our appeal to the rule of law finds us in a city that belongs to everybody who arrives here. New York and the United States continues to lead by example in their commitment to the rule of law through its talented, independent, and dedicated judges on both the federal and state levels, to its tireless, creative, and forward-thinking attorneys practicing in every area of the law, to the hard-working paralegals and court clerks and support staff who ensure that this legal system functions. Each and every day, the city demonstrates the power of the rule of law, the power to bring justice to victims, the power of individual citizens to challenge government, and the power to attract businesses from around the world. New York offers a system of which I have always felt privileged to be a part when I visit here. If you walk by the New York State Supreme Court courthouse, just a few miles from here in Lower Manhattan, built nearly 100 years ago, you may be struck by the inscription on the front of the courthouse, which contains a very simple, but I think profound message. The inscription reads, "The true administration of justice is the firmest pillar of good government." Never before has this principle been more important here in New York, in the United States, and of course, around the world. So thank you all for your commitment to a world ruled by law and not by force, and for deepening that commitment here together in New York. We wish you a very productive sessions. Thank you very much.
I'm honored to join all of you gathered at the United Nations today to celebrate the opening session of the New York World Law Congress. I want to thank the World Jurist Association and its chairman, Javier Cremades, for hosting today's program and for the important work the organization plays in our international community. For 60 years now, the WJA has worked to strengthen the rule of law around the globe so we can build a peaceful, more inclusive set of societies where the rights of all are respected. Today, you're honoring outstanding individuals who spent their lives advancing that same noble goal. I'm very proud that I had the opportunity to nominate one of these honorees, Justice Stephen Breyer, to the United States Supreme Court. Throughout his 27 years on the court, Justice Breyer was a consensus builder whose rulings were rooted in a desire to strengthen our democracy, promote equality, and make a positive difference in people's lives. His encyclopedic knowledge of the law is surpassed only by the character and judgment with which he served, and he is very deserving of this prestigious award. I must also note that he was the first justice, at least that I ever noticed, to ask us to look at what the law was in other countries and how other people were handling similar challenges to ours. So congratulations to Justice Breyer and to all the honorees, and best wishes to all of you for a productive session of the World Law Congress. I'm honored to join all of you gathered at the United Nations today to celebrate the opening session of the New York World Law Congress. I want to thank the World Jurist Association and its chairman, Javier Cremades, for hosting today's program and for the important work the organization plays in our international community. So congratulations to Justice Breyer and to all the honorees, and best wishes to all of you.
For 60 years, the association has carried out exceptional work, mobilizing the international legal community in a global campaign to promote governance of laws, not of men, the rule of law, not the rule of arbitrary decisions, authoritarianism, and brute force. Now is a good moment to remember that the creation of the World Jurist Association took place at the height of the Cold War, to promote an idea that remains extraordinarily relevant. Only under a governance of laws, under the protection of the law, can we guarantee that citizens and their nations will be able to live in peace and freedom.
The point of law is to protect freedom. It's to protect everyone's freedom and to have rules by which we relate to one another in society.
A new nation created in liberty and based on the proposition that all men are created equal. Today we are fighting a great war, and this is the point.
Ladies and gentlemen, continuing with the program, we are very honored to have with us today the President of Ecuador, His Excellency Guillermo Lasso, and please, President, the floor is yours.
Señor Henry Molina, presidente de la Corte Suprema de Justicia de República Dominicana.
Señor Anthony Kennedy, juez principal de la Corte Suprema de Justicia de los Estados Unidos de América. Señora Viviane Reding, comisaria primera de Justicia de la Unión Europea. Señora Susan Kohlmann, presidenta de la Asociación de Abogados de la Ciudad de Nueva York. Señor Javier Cremades, presidente de la Asociación Mundial de Juristas. Altas personalidades que recibirán la medalla de honor de la Asociación Mundial de Juristas. Altas personalidades, distinguidos jueces y juezas, representantes de la academia, invitados especiales, amigos todos, distinguidos asistentes. Es un honor en mi primera actividad oficial en Estados Unidos, es un honor dirigirme a ustedes en el evento de inauguración de la edición 28 del prestigioso World Law Forum. Mi saludo afectuoso a las autoridades y directivos de este evento, también a los participantes y a todos los juristas que se encuentran presentes. Me alegra sobremanera saber que este Congreso, de tanto prestigio y altísimo nivel en las Américas, abordará temas de enorme importancia en este momento, como la democracia, el Estado de Derecho, la libertad de expresión, la justicia internacional, los derechos humanos, la era digital y hasta el populismo. Son asuntos de alta relevancia que los demócratas debemos analizar siempre como un mecanismo de vigilancia y protección al mejor sistema político que conocen los países de la edad moderna. La democracia y el Estado de Derecho son fundamentales en el ejercicio de gobernar, tanto que marcan el futuro de las sociedades. La democracia y el Estado de Derecho tienen un contradictor muy fuerte, el populismo, que crece de manera preocupante en los países con altos niveles de pobreza, corrupción y violencia. En América Latina tenemos varios ejemplos de ello. Sin embargo, también están encendidas las alertas en los países desarrollados, porque los populismos autoritarios están retomando lesivos conceptos que ponen en riesgo los derechos humanos muy relacionados con la movilidad humana. Este es un espacio relevante para subrayar que para proteger a la democracia se debe gestionar un crecimiento económico en armonía con los derechos humanos, la naturaleza y las leyes. Estas condiciones que permiten que los ciudadanos puedan materializar sus derechos y tener mayor comprensión de que la democracia es el mejor sistema de gobierno. De lo contrario, como también ocurre en América Latina, los gobiernos autoritarios y populistas tienen mayores posibilidades de ascender, ya que utilizan mecanismos democráticos como las elecciones para llegar al poder. Y también sabemos que desde ese momento empiezan a corroer el sistema democrático, toman el control de toda la institucionalidad pública, son autores descarados del saqueo y la corrupción y no tienen ningún rubor en violar derechos humanos. Vivimos una etapa de trascendentales transformaciones donde la forma de comunicarnos
y resolver conflictos mutuos cada día, la tecnología nos brinda asombrosos medios para visibilizar y canalizar legítimas demandas de sectores que hasta hace muy poco eran ignorados. Pero en medio de estos cambios no podemos perder la perspectiva de que el Estado de Derecho es la piedra angular sobre la cual se construyen sociedades libres, justas y equitativas. Nuestro deber como líderes exige escuchar y atender las demandas ciudadanas con la importancia que éstas merecen y en el menor tiempo posible. Este foro es un escenario para renovar nuestro compromiso con los principios democráticos y la defensa del Estado de Derecho, esenciales para poner límites al abuso de los gobernantes, garantizar la independencia de poderes y respeto de las libertades y derechos. Queridos amigos, reciban todos ustedes un fuerte abrazo y el cariño del pueblo ecuatoriano. Que Dios los bendiga a todos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, President Lasso, for honoring us tonight, this morning, and for inaugurating with your wise words the discussions which will take place during a whole day between lawyers and prosecutors and jurists from 60 countries. So thank you very much. And I would like to give now the floor to our host of today, the president of the New York City Bar Association, Susan Kohlmann. You have the floor.
Good morning. It is a great honor for the New York City Bar Association to host this 60th anniversary edition of the World Law Congress and to welcome this remarkable assemblage of world leaders, high court justices, and friends in the legal profession from all around the world. We extend our deep gratitude to the World Jurist Association for bringing us all together at a time when it has never been more important for us to be together and take action together in order to bring about, as the World Jurist Association's mission has said since its founding, a world ruled by law, not force. A world ruled by law, not force. Many of us have been privileged enough and comfortable enough that those wonderful words have washed over us until now. They land very differently today after the events in the Ukraine, after January 6th in this country, and after many other sad signs of the times around the world. A world ruled by law, not force. A simple principle, grounded in a simple, seemingly obvious choice. And yet, at the opening session of this World Law Congress at the United Nations in April, as you saw on the video, as retired U.S. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer noted, today we are fighting a great war. And this is the point: freedom, equality, rule of law. That's what he said. Javier Cremades, president of the World Jurist Association, said in April, "The world is struggling. We really have a difficult time to promote and preserve the rule of law, even within democracies. I want you all to know how committed the New York City Bar Association is to preserving the rule of law and democracy. It's in our DNA. We were founded for that very reason. In 1870, in the wake of our Civil War, to address corruption in the judiciary and create a fair system of justice. And today, even as we work to protect the rule of law in America from the well-known threats to it over the past several years, we maintain a robust international focus with 19 committees with international affairs as their focus, and having joined the United Nations Global Compact in support of a more socially and economically inclusive global community. I should add that we have many, many international members, and we welcome all of you, fellow lawyers, to join us. Make yourselves at home here when business or pleasure brings you to our great city, New York. 60 years ago, in 1963, Chief Justice Earl Warren of the United States Supreme Court, along with ABA President Charles Rhine, as you saw in the video, inaugurated the first World Law Congress in Greece. 6 years after they joined with Sir Winston Churchill to found the World Jurist Association. That same year, 1963, Chief Justice Warren stood where I am standing now and spoke of the legal issues associated with desegregation efforts, while picketers carrying "Impeach Earl Warren" signs demonstrated just outside these doors. 2 years later, another great man stood on this very spot and addressed an overflow crowd. It was 1 year after the enactment of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 3 months before the signing of the Voting Rights Act, when Dr. Martin Luther King gave an address here at this podium entitled "The Civil Rights Struggle in the United States Today." Dr. King told the lawyers who sat in the audience, just as you are today, he said, "Standing before you in the house of this association, whose very cornerstone is an abiding respect for law, I am impelled to wonder, who is better qualified to demand an end to this debilitating lawlessness, to better understand the mortal danger to the entire fabric of our democracy when human rights are flaunted." Who indeed? It is up to us together, and that is why we are all here today. Thank you all for coming and joining us as we recognize today those whose work and careers, like those of Chief Justice Earl Warren and Martin Luther King, have been dedicated to preserving the rule of law. And thank you for your engagement today in the panels addressing so many critical issues. Together, let us work for a world ruled by law, not force. Let us, like Dr. King, demand an end to debilitating lawlessness around the world. And let us, together, achieve peace through law. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a great speech by our host. And she has quoted so many great men and women who have been a symbol for bringing the rule of law forward. And so one of the way the World Jurist Association promotes a living rule of law is by recognizing institutions and personalities whose work and career are for bringing forward a world where justice prevails over force. Today we will bestow 3 magnificent jurists with the World Jurist Association's Medal of Honor. But before we do that, we will have the opening remarks of Anthony Kennedy, Senior Judge of the Supreme Court of the United States. We are very honored to hear him speak to us. Judge Kennedy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Mr. President, my distinguished brothers and sisters in the judiciaries around this world, and friends of the rule of law, and advocates for the idea and the reality of the rule of law. It is my honor to be your guest, and in a sense also to welcome you here to New York and to our nation. Some years ago, about a decade and a half ago, in Vienna, it was my pleasure to host a conference of judges from 8 Eastern European countries, and we had just one judge from each country. It was very small. And we met for a day and a half or so. Afterwards, some students from the local college in Vienna were there, and we went out to greet them, and the young lady raised her hand, and she said, "There are 2 tragedies in my country. First, the rule of law is slipping away. Second, many seem to know this, but few seem to care." We have to remember, my friends, that the rule of law can be lost in many different ways. Hitler and Stalin attacked their own governments and then abrogated the rule of law. And other dictators, in more subtle ways, have attacked the rule of law frontally. But the rule of law can also be lost from indifference. We cannot be indifferent to the rule of law that protects our freedom. And my concern is that when people look at the United States, my own country, they do not always see a discourse, a conversation, a thoughtful interchange that is always respectful and dignified, maybe sometimes humorous. They don't see that much anymore. And it is our obligation in my country to show the rest of the world that the rule of law works and that it is necessary for our freedom. Freedom can be lost. We can see it in our own time. It's been lost in different countries in different ways. And Aristotle wrote about this. In Athens, he could see that freedom had been lost. The Americans think often, as they should, about their Constitution. And in the United States, when you say the word Constitution, people usually think of a capital C. The document that was drafted in 1787 and ratified and adopted in 1789. The document that has separation of powers, and then they had a Bill of Rights. The Constitution with a capital C. But there's also a Constitution with a small c. And that's the sum total of our mores, our manners, our customs, our beliefs, Mr. President, our aspirations for protecting our freedom. And this is the small c Constitution. This is the small c Constitution that Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau refer to in their writings. And the small c Constitution and the large c Constitution in our country must sustain each other. And we do this, again, through a dialogue, a discourse. And it is the purpose of your meeting and of this meeting to enhance that discourse and to find better ways for all of us to make sure that the rule of law does not slip away, that it does not slip away through direct attack or through indifference. It is true, as the President said. In a way, we like to think that freedom is part of our DNA, but freedom must be taught. Freedom is not preserved on its own. It's a natural instinct, but one that can be ignored. And the purpose of your meeting here is to remind all of us, to remind ourselves, that we must always unite in assisting each other in finding better ways to reach closer to the idea of freedom, the freedom that is protected by the rule of law to which you are so devoted. Welcome, and we wish you the very best in your deliberations.
Thank you, Justice Kennedy. It is true, the rule of law is under stress in a lot of places of the world. And that is why we have gathered here in order to find solutions. But it is also true that the rule of law works. And we have three eminent persons to honor today who show how, why, and in which way the rule of law works. So I am honored to present first Judge Ricardo Pérez Manrique, the President of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. He is a lawyer from Uruguay who has been serving at his international court since 2019. Former to this, he was a judge and the president of the Supreme Court of Justice of Uruguay. And for more than 30 years, Judge Pérez has dedicated his career to the judiciary. And his background before was family and children protection. Please give us a proud applause to Judge Ricardo Pérez Manrique, while President Cremades and Judge Kennedy will bestow him with the Medal of Honor.
Es para mí un honor, en nombre de la Corte Interamericana de Derechos Humanos, recibir este reconocimiento. Hemos oído hablar recién de Estado democrático de derecho y de la necesidad de preservar la libertad. Los tribunales internacionales, como es la Corte Interamericana de Derechos Humanos, son un elemento fundamental para asegurar el Estado de Derecho a nivel internacional y somos un elemento y un mensaje permanente de justicia, de paz y de vigencia de la dignidad humana. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, President Manrique, and we look forward to your panel. The panel of President will be Judges of the World and Digital Freedom of Speech. Now I would like to introduce to you a new trustee of our foundation, Judge Kari Kuusiniemi, President of the Supreme Administrative Court of Finland. He has been serving at this court for more than 20 years, and he was previously a professor of environmental law. He has not only been an active speaker in many of our congresses, in our discussions, but also he has brought together jurists worldwide in order to build a network on environmental law throughout our continents. Thank you very much, and please come up to get the medal by President Cremades and Judge Kennedy. As you have understood, our friend Judge is not somebody of words, is somebody of action. And he will preside the panel on rule of law, energy transition, and climate later on. I will now introduce to you our last awardee of today. I'm honored to present Diego García-Sayán. Diego is a trustee of the World Law Foundation since its inception, and when he was contacted in order to help us, he agreed at once and took it in his hands. Since the Congress in Madrid in 2019, he was then the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the independence of judges and lawyers, one of the main subjects of our association. During 45 years of his career, he served as president of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and as Minister of Foreign Affairs and as Minister of Justice of Peru. Please salute Diego García-Sayán to receive the medal by President Pérez.
Congratulations for this beautiful award. Thank you
Well, really, thank you very much. I'm really honored, obviously, to be here to receive this award in a very difficult context that we are suffering in the world, in which rule of law and justice, as it can be said, is really under attack. but I have had the privilege to be here in this house in the New York City Bar Association in several occasions and see how they are strong institutions like this one, their leadership, and of course the World Jurist Association as strong messengers of rule of law, of human rights, that gives for all of us trust and confidence of the future, and to see that all these attacks that we are suffering, independence of judges, democracy in different parts of the world, will be really successfully overcome. Thank you very much for this award and this prize. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Diego García-Sayán. And this is the end of our ceremony for bestowing the medals. So now we can go to the heart of our work, trying to find solutions all together so that they can be applied for the good of human rights, peace through law. Before we end here, I would like to remember you that the gala dinner tonight at the Metropolitan Club will be one of the highlights. You have to inscribe yourself and reserve your place. There are very few places left, but we will give them out all before the end of this day. So you are very much welcome, but please take the action to reserve your place. I wish all of you a very fruitful day.